I've got a couple of questions for that anyone can have a go at answering if they like, and then I've got some questions for each individual person. So the first question we have is, considering the evolving global supply chain dynamics, what strategies should developers adopt to mitigate risks when importing construction materials? And how can platforms like Frethan and partnerships with financial institutions aid in this process? Would anyone like to answer that?
Yeah, sure. In my view, the first thing is, the developer really need to look outside of the box rather than just focus on what they already have, because the situation has already changed, and also the world is changing and the technology is changing. So it's better utilize whatever have presented them as an opportunity, and then start to utilize what's happening with technology, with the resources, and to look at what's possible.
Kind of along that same track. So in your collective experience, everyone, how has technology transformed the construction industry, particularly in the realm of sourcing and procurement? And also, what future innovations do you predict will further shape the industry?
Well, technology is made it's advanced it a lot, including how we draw up plans. These days, even the councils are now picking up on how we can do things faster through technology. The email, the old days of paperwork and all that is going, and emails and just a whole file of construction on how we build it. We can just email it straight over to council in drop boxes or in various forms, and that's just taking up saving a lot more time, and the council can then assess projects a lot faster. So technology is going, and how it into the future. Well, I think houses are going to get smarter. We will probably won't have electrical plugs anymore. Everything will be done by battery operated. Lights will all be completely different to what we see now in housing. So Tesla already working on those things that we won't have to wire a house up anymore. It'll just be all done electronically in a different way. So advancements in this is getting huge, and Tesla's leading the way in that one.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any insights into how technology perhaps is changing the building industry from a finance or perspective? Or
I probably will touch a bit about how technology changed internal operation of building and construction industry. I will have to say builders and developers they're not very good at paperwork. Nowadays, with the development of technology, accounting side, bookkeeping, in terms of scheduling of workflow, estimation of project costs can all be automated through different apps, and those apps can work together seamlessly and passing information from one end to the other, which not only save costs but also largely improve the accuracy, and so the business owner can make informed decision. You will reduce the compliance cost, and also we talk about cash flow management, right? So which means they can do things faster, they can collect money faster, they can send quote faster, they can arrange their workflow and work source very smoothly. So overall, it just means they have the power to run a more efficient business.
Fantastic. Yeah, I agree. I've certainly as well, there's been a lot of, I think, changes around occupational health and safety and things like that, which were previously taking up huge amounts of time, which are now being digitally run. Lindy, I've got a question for you individually. So as the visionary behind Frethan, Can you share with us the initial challenges you faced in establishing a platform that can bridge the gap between Chinese manufacturers and Australian developers? And how have you seen this impact the cost and efficiency of construction projects here in Australia?
Well, when I first approached the construction industry, especially dealing with the developers, and they throw 5 questions on me. Okay, they said, "Lindy, I love to use you. However, those are the following things or problem you need to solve. The number one would be the quality. Okay, how can you make sure the quality is the way it's delivered is supposed to be? And number 2 is also the money." Because the developers only pays, if they buy in Australia, they only, get the terms, like, for 30 days, they pay later, and the banks paid them. And then if buy in China, they have to pay in advance, okay? The third one would be the storage. And if you have the whole container arrived, what's going to happen? And they have to store somewhere, okay? And the fourth one would be, such as the logistics and installation. And then the next one would be Australian standard. And how can you make sure everything meeting the Australian standard? So with those 5 questions in mission, literally I started this quest. Like, how can we solve them one by one? And literally with the number 1, the quality is probably seems the most difficult, yet the easiest for us, because China direct sourcing has been the industry for 20 years. And with Frethan to systemize the whole importing experience and the DIY solution, therefore internally we have solved that problem. And that is the reason we designed, China direct sourcing designed Frethan to solve that issue. And then with number 2 with the money, and that's something, it's not what we can do personally, and yet, I asked the partner, and that's why we invited, the Westpac as the trade finance to provide, 180 days credit to the developers, and therefore developer can still enjoy the benefit of the cost cutting, and yet, and with the support from the trade finance people. And with the storage and the warehouse, so we suggested, like, literally, you do not have to buy everything in one go. We can streamline the procurement together with the project development. So to see, instead of, if giving example, one of my customer have 47 townhouses and with the bathroom and kitchen, and it's going to be around, like, say, 4 containers. And just, in one go. So instead, I suggested, no, don't buy 4 containers in one go. We still do research and tender, we still do the sampling, we still do purchase order negotiation, everything is in one purchase order. However, we deliver the products into 4 different containers. We arrange the 4 containers 1 or 2 weeks apart. And therefore, according to installation, your installation schedule, we deliver the projects one, like a container 1 at a time. And therefore, you pay the money 1 at a time. So we negotiate the contract and suited for the project. And also we allocate the money suited for the project. And we allocated the installation according to the project. So that basically, streamlined the whole construction procedures, as well as the procurement schedule. So, and then with the rest, say, for instance, other issue, and we can always find the solutions, such as the warehouse and the storage and meeting the Australian standards. And that's, it's a given. And when we start research and tender, the first thing we would ask, do you have Australian standard? If you don't, we don't necessarily even select the supplier. And then we provide the certificate for origin and the certificate of, like, Australian standards, therefore to overcome what the question has been thrown on me. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Great answer. Minna, so from your, so you've actually, your presentation was fantastic. And so you did talk a lot around the financial advantages that developers can gain and taxing implications. But yeah, maybe can you delve a little bit more into the benefits of utilising group buying platforms like Frethan?
I think that will come down to the fundamentals of running a business, right? So we talk about tax savings, we talk about cash flow management, we talk about business structure. But what would happen if a business doesn't have profitability to start with? There's no tax to pay because you don't have profit. You don't have to worry about structure because you don't have anything left in equity, right? So everything starts for a business start with profitability. So where the profit come from? Income minus expenses. Where the income from? There's a market price. You sell the market, there's a certain range. You can't do too much about it. So what can we do? We can only control what we can, right? So what we can control. So I always tell client, go through expenses and look at what's the biggest item of operating your particular business. And for me, that particular item that will have the most impact is the construction cost for property development or building company. Because in general, I was talking to Craig, and Craig shared with me that, and from experience as well, in a construction project, generally land cost is 20%, and then the construction will be 80%. With the construction cost, building material roughly come around 30%. The rest will be labor, financing costs, and contingents and business general operation expenses. So building material, guys, building a material is 30% of the overall expenditures. And if we're able to cut the building material cost by 10% through good buying or buying smartly from China, assuming they're meeting the standard, assuming deliver on time, then what's the impact? What's the impact, right? 10% increase in profitability. What's the general profitability from ATO benchmark for a construction company or developer? 15 to 25. So the good ones can get about 25%, average 15%, and then a lot of them actually bankrupt, right? So they don't make any profit. 10% is a lot, right? So if you can get that right, providing, I said a lot about conditions, if you can save 10% in terms of building, in terms of overall expenditures, you are one step ahead of your competitors. So I think that's the power of group buying and buying directly from China through a platform like you guys have invented.
Absolutely, completely agree. So Craig, you also have already talked a little bit about what I have here on the question, but I'd love to know if you're able to provide an example of how you see the collaboration with China Direct Sourcing and Frethan benefiting one of your projects, particularly in terms of cost savings and timelines.
Okay. Well, we're just starting a project now in Nelson Bay, which is 4 upmarket villas, retailing around $2.5 million each. So it's a $10 million project at the end. We have a build cost of around $3.3 million. So with Lindy's company, we've got windows, we've got kitchens, kitchen tops, doors, door handles, there's sinks, there's toilets, so tapware, various products that we can get sourced from China that will be miles cheaper and just as good quality. And if you understand really what's happening in the world, is that most of product is made in China anyway. But the big companies like Chroma and all that, you have to buy off them in Australia. This way we're sort of going around the back door. It's a great way of doing it. Everyone does it, and it's a good way of saving. So, but, other products like windows and, windows are very important. And I find that we just built a project down in on the Gold Coast, which was 8 townhouses just finished, and we used windows from China. Now, they're all double glazed. windows that and they were miles cheaper than what we were going to buy in Australia, and they were single glazed. So we've got double glazed windows that gives soundproofing and insulation, and it's keeps the sun out, and so buying from China and doing through Lindy is definitely a better way for us going forward, and the cost savings as well. It's very important.
Awesome. That's a great example. Thank you so much for putting some context around what it looks like in the real world. And finally, Jose, my question for you was, how does Westpac play in facilitating smoother financial transactions for international dealings? Now, I know you've talked a little bit about that in your slides, but perhaps again, if you can sort of reiterate and just provide some context to how it would work for a developer.
So, as my role as a specialist, I provide advice on the risk in international trade, especially with banks. We deal in the financial supply chain. Okay, that's our lane. The physical supply chain, we'll leave it to the experts, such as Lindy. Okay, and as a specialist, I work with our bankers, Jay Devlin here, who actually owns the actual relationship for the customer. Now, apart from providing the specialist advice, Jay provides overall banking. So we work as a team together, and that's how we basically service our customers and provide them the service that they require. Not only in international trade, but also they might use other cash flow management tools, such as I said, the forward exchange contracts in hedging, currency accounts, but also invoice finance, another cash flow or cash flow facility that we provide for our customers.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. We've got a couple of minutes to go, so I'll just check and see if anyone in the audience had any questions they'd like to ask. We've got someone here.
Yeah, Craig virtually answered my question. Like before you met Lindy, now you met Lindy, you're saving at least, 10-15% on most products you buy, get imported?
Oh, no, a lot more than that.
Yeah,
No,
I'm just
no.
being conservative.
Yeah.
Before. Okay, that's good. Another thing is, Lindy, I know most builders I know, old school. Craig is, even though he's more mature, he's new school. He's willing to change his mindset to see someone that can get outsourced even better. Most of the builders I've talked to, they don't want to, they try their best not to import from China because of what happened in Wollongabba a couple of years ago. The whole glass just completely smashed. In the project, 10 of the 10 of the sinks weren't Australian standard, but when I talked to him, I said, no, this lady knows how to get Australian standards. She said, oh, that's something hard to believe. So that's why I need a promotion video to help you get into the market.
All right. So try to, here is the thing. I see this question as two-sided, okay? One side is we always strive for the best, strive for the excellence, strive for finding the best manufacturers in China suited for the project. And because of because of the $130 million contract in place, therefore enabled us to access the supplier which we are not able to access before. Number two, China is a fast train. Doesn't matter you get on board or not, it will still go ahead. So as the developer like Craig, if you like to jump on board, great. Enjoying the benefit together and with the support from China Direct Sourcing, support from Frethan, support from Westpac, support from the BDO, support from Minna, then we go ahead together and we shine. But if you want to stay left behind, no one can stop you.
Just got one more question from the audience here.
Yeah, so Lindy, so in my particular situation,
working to import portables, expandable homes, and looking at a first order of 3 to 4 to come in, which is about will be closer to the 100,000 mark maybe. Our issue that we're finding with the suppliers, that because we've been vetting suppliers, trying to shortlist suppliers before I come to you, is maintenance, is, you know, what the warranties, because a lot of them are not giving any warranties or guarantees that we feel could be maybe effectively enforced here in Australia, especially with seals and other things that could go wrong with the expandable. Is that something that Frethan addresses in the legals, or you know, you read?
That is actually a very great question. So literally, you know, we actually set it up in the quality control system. So you make sure this supplier, number one, if it's the same thing like if you find a builder in Australia and this builder is not responsive and it's not very responsible, what do? Then you're stuck. So the good thing is to select the right person. That's the number one thing to make sure you finally get a quality product delivered. Number two, in case, in unlikely event, something like that happen, what do? So then you have actually what we call the negotiation system and build in the maintenance clause and build in the contingency. So you work out, all right, 99% of the products are in good shape. There is 1% are not in good shape. So therefore, with the money you saved, for example, $30,000 or $10,000 per container, you allocate at least 5% contingency to cater for that budget, for the repairing and for the fixing those things. So number one thing, the most important is to make sure you select the right supplier. If the supplier, the defects rate is 90%, then doesn't matter how high you set the contingency are, you're going to fail in this project. So it's not only just the negotiate the clause in a single matter. It's always look at the whole project from the holistic point of view. That's why we always emphasize start from stage one research and tender. Knowing the supplier have a good reputation, knowing the supplier had a good quality control system, knowing the supplier take responsibility for the work they have done, knowing the supplier have a good tracking records, knowing the supplier is actually proud of their reputation about dealing the customer. And then when you're only doing not just 3 or 4 products, remember when you come to us, we are not only just having your project in our hand, we actually have thousands of customers in our hand and also many developers in our hand. Therefore, we have much, much more negotiation power than each individual customer.
I might add a point there. The other thing what Lindy can do is if she gets, say, windows that are coming in and they're not sealed right or things like that, she can go back to that manufacturer and say, look, I've got a bunch of builders that I'm working with. If you're not going to give us the good product, then we're not going to use you anymore. So buying power for Lindy is the more builders that come on board and developers, she can have that power to go back to them and say, give me good quality. Now, in saying that, being a builder for over 40 years, I find waterproofing and so many products that I've used over the years, and being the builder, and then asking the tradesman to go back and fix it, they run for cover. So there's not many big warranties in Australia anymore. You as the builder are the warranty. You got a 6.5 year license, and once you go back to that tradesman and ask him to do it, 99% of them will run away. You're the one who has to fix it. So, and you're the one who end up paying it. So I think the risk of going to China to Australia is not much. You make a big savings. In Australia, there's product out there. Appliances may be a little bit different. You've got appliances and things like that. But, materials here in Australia, there's not a lot of you'll have a fight with everyone over those. And look, the ones that are made in Australia or installed in Australia, you ask a tradesman to come back, and most of the time they don't want to come back. So the builder is responsible, and he's the one. So yes, make sure your product's right. And what Lindy gives you is it gives you that opportunity to go and have a look at that product in China and make sure that you're happy with it. And you got to do your own homework. And if you do your own homework and you make sure that that product's right, you shouldn't have those problems.